you have the Canon R5 Mark II and you're trying to figure out how to take advantage of C-Log 2 to capture gorgeous cinematic footage just like this, well, you're in the right place. In this video, I'll guide you step by step through everything you need to know about shooting on C-Log 2 on the Canon R5 Mark II. From understanding why and how to set it up, all the way to color grading for that cinematic look. So if you're ready to unlock the full potential of your Canon R5 Mark II, grab your camera and let's get started. So first off, why C-Log 2? First reason is its dynamic range. C-Log 2 allows us to take advantage of the sensor's full dynamic range, which goes up to 16 stops. And all that really means is that you can see more details in the shadows and in the highlights, or the dark parts of the image into the bright parts of the image. Versus when you shoot in a standard profile with less dynamic range, you'll find that the very bright parts of your image suddenly become blown out much sooner than when you would find in C-Log 2. This dynamic range also allows us to play more with the colors and adjusting exposure in post. And the second reason we shoot on C-Log 2 is because it has a more filmic look. Part of the reason it has that filmic look is because of its high dynamic range, but it also has to do with the way C-Log 2 has a smoother highlight roll-off, as well as a more smooth contrast curve throughout the whole image, which in turn makes the image more natural appearing and has that cinematic filmic quality to it. Alright, so now that we know why we want to shoot in C-Log 2, how do we set it up? Alright, you want to make sure that you have the camera set to record in video, and then we're going to go to mode and set that to manual exposure. To turn on C-Log 2, we'll have to open up the menu, go to the red menu, which is the camera icon, and go to the fourth page. This should say color, tone, and dynamic range on the top. And then we have to go into custom picture, and in this menu, we need to turn CP function to on. And now we can go and select CP file, and Canon already has a preset for Canon Log 2, and that is in C2. Technically, we can just stop right there and start shooting in C-Log 2. But if you want to customize a little bit further, or if you want to apply a LUT, so you're looking at the LUT and not just a great image, we would have to unlock this. Now go to Edit CP File, and in Protect, we're going to turn that off. Now here are the settings I've changed and that you might want to test out for yourself. For color matrix, I set this to production camera. For look file, I actually turn this on when I'm previewing the image, but otherwise, whenever I'm shooting, I turn this off. If you want to know how to upload LUTs to this camera, you can check out my video on it here. Next, we're going to go to sharpness, and I set mine to +25. And we'll go down to noise reduction, and we'll turn auto to on, and we'll change spatial filter to 4, and frame correlation to 2. Now let's talk about setting up the exposure tool so you can properly expose C-Log 2 so you don't end up with really crummy footage. Back in the red menu, we're going to go to page 8, assist shooting. Here we're going to open up zebra settings. We're going to ensure zebra is on, and for zebra pattern, we're going to use zebra 1 for testing exposure for skin tones, and we're going to use zebra 2 for testing for clipping. Now on zebra 1 level, we're going to set that to 55 ± 5. And for zebra 2 level, we will set that to 95%. With this setting on, you should see stripe lines in your image based on the brightness value of those parts of the image. Zebra 1 line patterns go from the top right corner to the bottom left, and zebra 2 patterns go from the bottom right corner to the up left. But it's really annoying to stare at this while you're shooting, so we're going to customize some buttons so you can quickly toggle this feature on and off. We're going to hop back into the menu, and we're going to go to the green menu and go to page 1, customized controls when shooting. Here we're going to open up customized buttons for shooting, and we'll have to scroll all the way down, and we're going to go to this first button called Depth of Field Preview Button, or DOF Preview Button. And make sure you're customizing the video side of buttons and not the photo side. And we're going to set this button to zebra on and off switch. Next, I like to actually set a hotkey for false color as well. And for this, I like to set it to the AF point button. And you go and select that, and you'll see the option for false color over here. All right, now that we got all the settings down for actually enabling C-Log 2 and for exposing C-Log 2, let's talk about how to use them together to actually expose the image. So there are really only three scenarios you'll be exposing for people, exposing for B-roll, and exposing for low light situations. Let's start with people. When you're exposing for people, you're going to want to enable Zebra 1. This is the value we set to 55 plus or minus 5. And what you want to see here is on the bright side of a person's face that's being illuminated by a light source, whether that's the sun or a studio light like right now, you want to see those zebra patterns across that part of the face. Once you see those zebra patterns, you know that they're properly exposed and you can begin recording. A quick note here is if you're using the Canon LUT and you're baking that in, you actually want to set your zebras to 60 plus or minus 5% and then expose for those zebra patterns on the bright side of the face. You may also use false color to expose for people, and the trick here is just slightly different, but achieves the same result. You want the bright side of a person's face to be the bright gray above the pink shade that is in the false color index. So in this example here, you should see that the individual's face is actually split light where there's a bright source coming from one side, and then you'll see that there's a pink line that goes through the middle, and then the green line towards the dark shadowy side of the face. And this is something that's going to take a little bit of practice to getting used to, but as I've been using false color for the last year on my Canon R5 Mark II, I've actually found exposing using false color to be fairly simple. So just give a shot to either the zebra or false color and see which one you prefer. All right, now the second scenario we'll be exposing C-Log 2 for is B-roll. Let's cover that now. For this, we're going to enable Zebra Pattern 2. And the reason we're enabling Zebra Pattern 2 is so that we can see what parts of the image are clipping or being overexposed. With Zebra 2 enabled, you should see zebra patterns only on the brightest parts of the image. So typically light sources or bright parts of the scene. Here's a quick tip to know whether it should be overexposed for your camera. If you look at that part of the scene and it's bright to your eyes and is hard to see, then it should be overexposed and clipping for your camera as well. So an easy example is the sun. We're not going to try to expose for the sun because it is such a bright light source and is normally hurting to our eyes when we look at it. So if there's zebra patterns on the sun, then that's something you shouldn't really worry about. If there are no really bright sources in the scene that you're shooting in, then you'll actually want to switch over to using false color. But the same philosophy holds true. All you're looking for here is making sure that the brightest parts of the image, like light sources or shiny objects, are either yellow or red in clipping, and the darkest parts of the image, like the dark shadows of a corner, or like a black handle in the back corner of a room, something along those lines, they should be blue or purple. You just want to make sure that not the whole scene is blue and purple or yellow and red. In fact, if it's mostly gray, then you're probably okay. But this is assuming you have a lot of light in the scene. What if it is a dark lit situation? Let's cover that now. In these low light situations, you really should just use false color. Just like in the previous example, we were going to use our eyes and judgment to set the dark parts of our image. If they're covered in shadow, in this case, most of the image is going to be covered in shadow. It should be mostly blue and slightly dark gray. Ideally, you really don't want too much purple because purple means you're actually losing that data. So blue and dark gray is what you're aiming for. Unless, of course, you are in a pitch dark room and maybe there's just one light source lighting someone up, like say on a stage, then you would just ignore everything that's dark in the image and only expose for what's in the scene that's lit up. But if you have no scene and it's just a dark exterior shot, then you can use the false color trick that we just mentioned. Just make sure nothing goes to purple. All right, now we're going to move on to color correction. And if you baked in the LUT previously, then this is something you can skip and just go to color grading. But for the rest of you, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do here is actually go to Canon's official website and download their correction LUT. You can find it on the support page for the camera you're using, in this case, the Canon R5 Mark II. Make sure you save this where you have easy access to it. I like to save mine in Documents. Then we're going to open up Adobe Premiere Pro in my case, but any editing software should have this capability. What we're going to do is create an adjustment layer over our footage. With the adjustment layer selected, we're going to add the correction LUT to it. So we're going to hit the browse, look for LUTs, and depending where you save the LUT, open it and select the correct one. In this case, it's this one. And boom, now the LUT should be applied to the adjustment layer. Now you can stretch this over the whole timeline, covering all your footage, and now all your footage should be color corrected. But you'll want to go through just once and just double check the exposure and make sure it looks correct. If any of the exposure of the clips are off, you're going to want to select the clip individually and adjust the exposure using the Lumetri color tools like exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, etc. Color correcting this way allows you to have the most flexibility when adjusting color and as well exposure in post-production. And finally, let's talk color grading, where color correction is just getting footage to look natural or how it should in real life. Color grading is a creative choice that you get to do for yourself. So depending on the look you're going for, you can go for a more contrasty look, a less contrasty look, maybe a more saturated look, a less saturated look. Whatever it is, you're all in creative control in this situation. But in my personal case, I like to take advantage of some creative LUTs. And I bought these ones from Gamut.io, and this is the Adagio set. So this is what I do. I create another adjustment layer, and this time I'll call it the name of the LUT I'm going to use, which is Adagio 2. And then once again, with that adjustment layer selected, we're going to open up Lumetri Color, go to Creative, and I'll select that LUT, Adagio 2. Now at 100% intensity, I do think it's a little too much and a little too tacky, so I typically reduce this to 50 or 60%. I like 60% in this case. And now you can see when I turn this thing on and off, what a big difference it makes on the final look of the image. And now all you got to do is make sure that this adjustment layer once again covers all the footage in your timeline so all the clips are affected by it. And that's it, you're all done. Congratulations for making it all the way through this video. I know this one was really long and really detailed, but I really wanted to give you a breakdown of how to take advantage of C-Log 2 on the Canon R5 Mark II. If you still have any questions or if I didn't explain something very well, leave it in the comments section below and I'll be sure to answer it. I'll be making more guides on how to take advantage of all the features of the Canon R5 Mark II, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching all the way until the end. I appreciate every single one of you who do, and I'll see you in that next video. Peace.